Look, my name's Casey. I have a story for you, and you're not going to believe it, but I have proof. Everything I've learned about you and the division you work for is in a file there on the desk.
What file?
Evan Shaw is an experienced CIA assassin working under his handler, Kevin Angler. Angler oversees a covert Black Ops unit known as the Tourism Board, a secret organization responsible for assassinations across the globe. Whenever Shaw enters a new country, he follows the same routine. He retrieves his luggage from Lost and Found, finds a specific newspaper, and deciphers his assignment using coded messages hidden in the classified ads. After confirming his mission, Shaw heads straight to his hotel. He checks into a room while remaining constantly alert, knowing his work depends on operating unnoticed. Inside, he unpacks his weapons, reviews the mission details, and opens a book left behind by Kevin, disguised as something ordinary. Inside the pages, Shaw finds a written message meant only for him. Later, Shaw infiltrates a nearby wharf positioned beside his target's well-guarded compound. From there, he carefully observes the area and positively identifies the man he has been sent to eliminate. That evening, while dining alone at a restaurant, Shaw notices a family celebrating a child's birthday at a nearby table. The sight pulls him into a painful memory of standing at the grave of his late wife, Monica, wishing she were still alive. As he finishes his meal, Shaw becomes aware of a blonde woman watching him closely from the bar. Without speaking to her, he pays for her drink through the bartender and leaves immediately. That night, Shaw sleeps with his firearm resting on his chest, remaining guarded even in rest. The following night, Shaw returns to the wharf, fully geared and blending into the shadows. He silently eliminates 2 guards stationed along the perimeter, dropping them before they can react. Moving higher, he positions himself at an elevated vantage point overlooking the target's compound and begins surveying the area. One guard notices the reflection from Shaw's scope, but the realization comes too late as Shaw takes him out instantly. Additional guards rush to respond, only to meet the same fate. Shaw then breaches the building and searches for his objective. He narrowly avoids an ambush, rolling out of danger, disarming the attacker and executing him without hesitation. Coming face to face with his target, Shaw says nothing and ends the job swiftly. Moments later, he vanishes into the night. Afterward, Shaw cleans himself up, treats his wounds, and destroys anything that could connect him to the assassination. He is then transported to Rome and driven to another hotel. Inside the lobby, he retrieves a newspaper and decodes his next assignment using the same hidden method. Reaching his room, he finds another message left behind for him from Kevin, written as a quote. Shaw studies the details of his new target, then heads out, leaving a folded dollar bill wedged into the door as a signal. He goes out to eat, once again drifting into memories of Monica, and later ends the night resting beside the pool. When Shaw returns to his hotel room, he removes the folded dollar from the door and immediately realizes that someone has been inside. Moments later, the same blonde woman he noticed at the bar steps into view, aiming a gun directly at him. She clearly knows his habits, his routines, and even how he receives his assignments. She introduces herself as Casey and claims she has crucial information waiting for him on the table. Shaw manages to distract her for a split second, then quickly disarms her, turning the weapon back on her and knocking her unconscious. When Casey regains consciousness, she reveals that she works for MI6 and was sent to investigate the unit Shaw believes he operates for. She tells him that the division doesn't officially exist, that Shaw was never part of the CIA, and that the program was shut down shortly after its creation. She then drops another bombshell. Kevin Angler has been dead for 10 years. Shaw violently tips her chair onto the floor. Casey pleads for her life, explaining that she's only an analyst and that she was following up on a case involving Monica. Hearing his wife's name rattles Shaw. He silences her before she can say more and takes her passport to confirm her identity. His search verifies her credentials and confirms that Kevin is indeed deceased. Shaw is pulled into a memory of an earlier conversation with Kevin, where he spoke about meeting Monica, falling in love, and wanting to walk away from the life to build a future with her. Shaw demands to know who has really been giving him orders all these years. Casey admits she doesn't know the full truth herself. She explains that she was never meant to confront him directly. Her assignment was only to observe and report, but she couldn't stand by knowing someone was manipulating an assassin from the shadows. Shaw releases her restraints, but when Casey insists on exposing whoever is behind the operation and asks for his help, Shaw isn't ready to trust her. He locks her inside the bathroom so he can think clearly. Alone, Shaw begins replaying everything she said, especially the idea that Monica's death may not have been accidental. By morning, Shaw makes his decision. He lets Casey out and agrees to go with her to Malta to uncover the truth. Elsewhere, inside a hidden control room, a woman tracks Shaw's movements through an implanted body locator. She informs her superior of Shaw's change in direction, and they immediately place a coded message in the newspaper, waiting to see if Shaw responds. As Shaw and Casey travel to Malta, she explains how she tracked him by studying every assassination, mapping his routes, habits, and patterns until they all led back to him. While standing near a public phone, it suddenly rings. A man on the line demands to know why Shaw is in Malta and warns him that if he doesn't complete his mission, he will become the next target. Shortly after, a professional mercenary team led by a ruthless commander named Butler is activated, with a single objective: hunt down and eliminate Evan Shaw. Shaw and Casey arrive in a neglected section of Malta, surrounded by crumbling buildings and overgrown streets. As they move through the area, Shaw becomes visibly uneasy. He recognizes the place immediately. It's where Engler first recruited him years ago, back when everything he believed still made sense. Inside one of the abandoned buildings, they search cautiously. Shaw leads Casey to what used to be Engler's office. The space is covered in dust and decay, but Shaw begins examining the furniture with purpose. He flips over chairs, checking beneath them until he finds the right one. Using a knife, he cuts it open, revealing hidden electronics and a cassette tape concealed inside. Before they can react, Shaw hears movement. A mercenary appears, and Shaw attacks instantly, throwing the man down the staircase. Outside, Butler realizes Shaw has found something important and orders his team to move in and surround the building. Gunfire erupts as Shaw and Casey flee upward, escaping onto the roof before breaking into a neighboring structure. The mercenaries pursue relentlessly. Shaw counters an ambush, taking out 2 attackers in close combat, while Casey barely avoids being hit by gunfire. They burst out into a crowded street where the mercenaries open fire indiscriminately, sending civilians running in panic. Shaw pulls Casey into a cathedral, slipping through side doors and descending underground. There, he tells her plainly that these aren't police. This is a contracted kill squad sent specifically for him. They steal a car and race to an MI6 safe house. Shaw enters first, clearing every room to ensure it's secure. Once inside, he pieces together a crude cassette player using spare equipment. When the tape begins playing, they hear Engler in a heated argument with another man named Sean. Sean accuses Engler of going rogue with the division and threatens to shut the entire operation down. The conversation leaves Shaw shaken. Casey immediately begins researching Engler. What she finds doesn't make sense. According to official records, Engler never had a family, no wife, no children. Everything Shaw thought he knew about the man he trusted is suddenly called into question. Shaw and Casey decide to lie low for the night while Shaw processes everything he's learned. He's now focused on uncovering who Sean really is and how deep this operation truly goes. Meanwhile, Butler continues trying to track Shaw, but the MI6 safe house blocks the GPS signal, leaving the mercenary team momentarily blind. Later, Shaw ventures out alone and sits at a quiet roadside cafe. He picks up a newspaper and scans the classified section, instinctively decoding a hidden message. He contacts the handler using the usual method. The voice on the other end orders him to return to Rome immediately and complete his assigned mission. This time, Shaw doesn't comply. He demands to know who he's really working for. The handler responds coldly, claiming that Casey isn't who she says she is and warning Shaw that both of them are marked for death. The call ends abruptly. Moments later, a car suddenly barrels toward Shaw at full speed. He dives out of the way just in time as Butler and his mercenary team launch a full-scale attack. Shaw steals a nearby vehicle and speeds off, narrowly avoiding automatic gunfire as a high-speed chase tears through the streets. Eventually, Shaw drives the car off a ravine. The mercenaries assume he's dead and blow the vehicle up, but Butler quickly realizes the truth. The GPS signal is still moving. Shaw survived. Shaw makes his way back to the safe house and urgently tells Casey to grab her things. Almost immediately, the mercenaries arrive and unleash a barrage of gunfire, ripping the building apart. One attacker breaches the interior, but Shaw fights him hand-to-hand and kills him with Casey's help. As the assault escalates, Butler retrieves a machine gun to finish the job. Shaw responds by throwing a pipe bomb into the advancing mercenaries, killing most of the team in a violent explosion. Using the chaos to their advantage, Shaw and Casey escape in Butler's vehicle. After putting distance between themselves and the attack, Shaw pulls the car over and immediately begins searching it for a tracking device. His instincts tell him they're still being watched. As he works, his frustration boils over and he turns on Casey, demanding to know who she really is. He points out that the MI6 safe house had no security protocols in place and says that doesn't make sense. Shaw makes it clear that if she's lying to him, he'll disappear without warning. Faced with his ultimatum, Casey finally breaks down and tells him the truth. She reveals that Monica was her mother. Then she tells him the rest. Shaw is her father. Shaw refuses to believe her. He accuses her of manipulating him and demands proof. Casey shows him her birthmark, identical in shape and placement to his own. Then she says his real name, Evander, a name Shaw only ever shared with Monica. Hearing it hits him like a punch. Shaw turns away, completely shaken. Casey collapses, crying, as Shaw is overwhelmed by memories of the woman he loved. Trying to steady himself, he listens as Casey shows him Monica's diary. Inside are entries describing her pregnancy and her attempts to reach Shaw. Shaw admits the truth. He never knew Monica was pregnant. He remembers telling Engler about meeting a woman and realizing now that Engler somehow already knew Monica's name. He explains that leaving Monica was the hardest decision he ever made, believing it was the only way to protect her. When he finally tracked her down later, it was already too late. She had passed away. With everything finally out in the open, Shaw and Casey leave together, needing time to rest and process the truth. Shaw and Casey return to Shaw's hideout to regroup. While there, Casey comes across one of Shaw's personal books filled with detailed sketches. At first, she admires them, thinking they're simply artistic drawings. Shaw corrects her, explaining that the book isn't art at all. It's a record of every person he's ever killed. Each sketch is paired with a set of coded markings. When Casey asks about the symbols, Shaw hesitates, clearly uncomfortable sharing this part of himself. Eventually, he gives in and explains how the code works. That night, Casey stays awake, carefully decoding entry after entry. By morning, she notices a troubling pattern. After Shaw's division was officially shut down, his assignments changed. Instead of terrorists and confirmed threats, his targets shifted to corporate executives and political figures. Casey realizes Shaw has been unknowingly used as a weapon. They take their findings to a nearby library to research further. Digging through records, Casey discovers that Sean, whose voice appeared on the cassette, was once one of Shaw's targets. She learns that Sean holds a high-ranking position within the Knights of Malta. Putting the pieces together, Casey believes Angler never truly retired. Instead, he ran a rogue operation and used Shaw to eliminate Sean when the program came under threat. After Angler's supposed death, Shaw continued taking assignments, this time for an unknown organization. Elsewhere, members of that shadow group are shown discussing Shaw, agreeing that he and the operation must remain hidden at all costs. Back at the library, Casey uncovers financial data tied to Shaw's kills. Every assassination caused market movement, but one company consistently benefited, the Griffin Group. With that discovery, Shaw finally understands how his skills have been exploited all along. Now fully aware that his assassinations were manipulating global markets, Shaw decides it's time to confront the people who have been pulling his strings. Alongside Casey, he walks directly into the headquarters of the Griffin Group. At the front desk, a woman immediately recognizes them. Shaw doesn't waste time with pleasantries. He demands to see whoever is in charge. They are escorted to a private office where they come face to face with Antonio, the man overseeing the operation. Antonio greets Shaw confidently and explains that Shaw's work helped transform the Griffin Group into one of the most powerful financial forces in the world. Rather than denying it, he openly admits Shaw has been invaluable. Antonio then makes an offer. If Shaw continues working for them, everything can go on as before. Antonio also reveals that he isn't the true leader. He offers to give Shaw the location of the people really in control in exchange for his life and a payoff. Casey immediately warns Shaw not to trust him, but Shaw chooses to accept the deal. Soon after, Shaw and Casey travel by boat to a remote seaside compound. Armed guards surround the property and escort them inside. As they are led deeper into the compound, both of them are stunned by what they see. Angler is alive. Angler steps forward to greet Shaw as if nothing has changed. Shaw mirrors the gesture for a brief moment, then suddenly drives a punch into Angler, knocking him to the ground. He demands the truth, who has been controlling the program and why he's been used all this time. Angler agrees to talk, but warns they don't have much time. Shaw is already suspicious that Antonio's men will try to eliminate everyone involved. Casey, meanwhile, confronts Angler, convinced he was responsible for Monica's death, especially since she died just as Shaw was trying to leave the program. Shaw presses his gun against Angler's neck, but before he can get answers, mercenaries arrive. They storm the compound, opening fire immediately. A violent shootout breaks out, and Angler's remaining men are quickly killed. Shaw, Casey, Angler, and the few survivors retreat into the basement. Shaw arms himself while Butler and his mercenary team push deeper into the compound. Shaw cuts the lights, turning the space into darkness, and silently takes down several attackers before vanishing again. Elsewhere, Casey encounters a lone mercenary. She manages to ambush him, knocking him out and taking his weapon along with several grenades. Moments later, Butler's second team crashes into the basement, spraying gunfire everywhere. Shaw responds with a high-powered rifle, holding them back. But Butler escalates the attack by firing a rocket launcher into the basement. The explosion tears through the structure, killing Angler in the blast. Shaw survives the blast and manages to pull himself free from the wreckage. He finds Casey, and together they escape the destroyed basement. They duck into a restroom where Shaw quickly patches up the wounds he suffered in the explosion. With mercenaries closing in, the two move toward the kitchen, which leads to an exit. As gunfire erupts behind them, Shaw stops and turns back, choosing to hold off the attackers. Casey hesitates, unwilling to leave him behind, but Shaw urges her to go. He thanks her for saving his life and tells her to keep moving. Armed with a shotgun, Shaw pushes forward, dropping mercenary after mercenary as they advance. He fights his way through the kitchen and manages to regroup with Casey, but their escape is short-lived. The remaining mercenaries are still on their trail. They end up trapped beneath a staircase with enemies approaching from multiple directions. Thinking fast, Casey throws a grenade, forcing an opening that allows them to break free. As they try to escape, another mercenary suddenly appears and shoots Casey. Shaw immediately engages the attacker, overpowering him and forcing him over a bridge. Before Shaw can recover, Butler shoots him, leaving him unable to move. Butler steps forward, preparing to finish him off. At the last second, Casey throws a grenade at Butler's feet. The explosion kills him instantly. Moments later, police sirens fill the area as authorities arrive on the scene. Shaw and Casey survive the ordeal and leave the compound together once the authorities secure the area. After everything that has happened, they visit Monica's grave. Standing there, Shaw promises Casey that he will take care of her and make sure she is never alone again. Later, the two sit down for a quiet lunch together. Shaw tells her there is one final matter he needs to handle. Casey understands and agrees to wait for him. Elsewhere, Antonio arrives at his private villa, visibly shaken by recent events. As he enters, he notices a newspaper resting nearby. The sight immediately raises his suspicions. Before he can react, Shaw appears behind him. Shaw calmly tells Antonio that negotiations are over. Without hesitation, he kills him and vanishes, leaving no trace behind. And that is how it ended. Make sure to like and subscribe for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.